Gentlemen, we convene this day to dissect and deliberate upon the Constitution of our young Republic. Its principles, no less vital today than at the inception of our government, demand our rigorous examination.
Indeed, a government instituted among men derives its just powers from the consent of the governed, a concept we fought diligently to establish. Let it not be said that in seeking liberty, we forget the tether of tyranny.
To forget, Washington implies a negligence of duty. Our republic is built not on the sands of complacency, but on the bedrock of vigilance. Each word of our Constitution holds the weight of our collective aspirations and fears.
Vigilance, Jefferson. Your bucolic ideals belie the hard truths of governance. Strong central authority ensures the liberty and security you so cherish. The Constitution is not merely a document, but a blueprint for a mighty empire.
Empire, Hamilton? You misspeak. Our Constitution is the fortress of federalism, guarding against the decay of liberty and the encroachment of tyranny. Empire suggests dominion and domination, terms we have strenuously opposed.
Dominion, perhaps, over our lesser angels. The Constitution, rightly understood, is a chain binding the Leviathan of government, yet chains rust and weaken without the oil of morality and civic virtue.
And so we find ourselves at the crux of the matter. The Constitution stands as both shield and sword, defending against external adversity and internal excess. Let us proceed to dissect its principles with the rigor and candor it deserves.
Let us not shy from contention in our discourse. In the crucible of debate, may the strength and integrity of our Constitution be tested and affirmed.
Test it we shall, for in its words lie the destiny of our republic. May we be steered by reason and illuminated by enlightenment principles.
Aye, let reason guide us, but let us not forsake the practical in favor of the ideological. Our Constitution is a living document, meant to adapt, not to anchor us to the past.
Indeed, Hamilton, the adaptability of our Constitution shall be its enduring legacy. But let us ensure that in adapting, we do not erode the foundational liberties it guarantees.
Well said, Madison. The document is ours to interpret, but its principles are eternal. May our discourse today reflect the gravity of our undertaking.
So let us begin, gentlemen, not as adversaries, but as architects of the future, reconciling the grand vision with the granular, the ideal with the attainable. Our republic and those who inherit it expect no less. Gentlemen, let us consider the architecture of our Constitution, particularly the separation of powers and checks and balances. Mr. Washington, your perspective?
A government must be strong, yet its power must be fettered. As Commander-in-Chief, I witnessed the perils of concentrated authority. The separation of powers is our rampart against the tyranny we fought so valiantly to escape.
Indeed, Mr. Washington. The Federalist Papers illuminate this framework as our guard against the encroachments of tyranny. Each branch must check and balance the others, a system meticulously designed to protect our liberties.
Aye, but let us not forget the necessity of a robust central government. Without it, we are but a confederation of states, weak in the face of adversity. The checks and balances serve to refine and enforce our laws, not to render us impotent.
Mr. Hamilton, your lust for a strong government blinds you to its dangers. The true safeguard of our liberties is an educated citizenry, ever vigilant. The powers granted to our government must be narrowly interpreted, lest we erect the very despotism we opposed.
Your points, though well made, neglect the essential ingredient: virtue. The success of our republic relies not just on the mechanics of government, but on the moral character of its people. Without civic virtue, no form of government can secure our liberties.
Mr. Adams, while virtue is commendable, it alone is insufficient. The system we've devised, this balanced and checked government, is our best hope against the corruption of morals and power.
And yet, power unchecked becomes power abused. Should we then place such faith in a central authority that its potential for overreach knows no bounds? The states must retain their rights, their own powers as custodians of freedom.
A compound republic, as I've termed it, is our solution. Federal and state powers, balanced and checked, offer a fortress against tyranny, each level of government effectively restraining the other, thereby ensuring liberty.
Let us not descend into factional bickering. Our Constitution was crafted with careful consideration and compromise. It is in union, in the wise and measured exercise of our constructed powers that we will find our security and prosper.
A spirited debate, gentlemen. It appears that while our views on the balance of power vary, our commitment to liberty and the prevention of tyranny is unanimous. Let us proceed with this understanding as we navigate the remaining topics of our discussion. Gentlemen, we now address the contentious matter of federal power versus states' rights. Mr. Jefferson, you've been vociferous on this issue. Pray, share your thoughts.
The principle of states' rights is fundamental to our republic's architecture. A strong, centralized authority is antithetical to the liberties we've fought to secure. Our future prosperity lieth in the empowerment of local governance, where the citizenry can wield direct influence.
Your idealism, Mr. Jefferson, clouds your judgment. Without a potent federal government, we are but a collection of squabbling provinces. Economic stability, national defense, these require a strong hand at the helm.
Mr. Hamilton, your strong hand may well become an iron fist. Mark my words, a government too powerful but suffocates the liberty of its constituents.
Allow me to offer a perspective that marries the views of my esteemed colleagues. The Constitution envisions a unique experiment, a federal system wherein power is distributed yet balanced. This compound republic is our safeguard against tyranny, be it from a centralized authority or from unchecked state power.
A lovely theory, Mr. Madison, but theories must be tested against the temper and disposition of the people. The American character is diverse and spirited. Only through engagement and compromise can such a system function.
Unity is our paramount concern. Disunion, fueled by excessively sovereign states, threatens the very fabric of our nation. I have observed firsthand the perils of disunity. Let us not be seduced into believing that our confederation can survive without a strong and unified direction.
Furthermore, consider the international stage. A fragmented union lacks the credence necessary for diplomatic respect and economic partnerships. Our federal system must possess the authority to act decisively on the world stage.
Aye, but let us not sacrifice our principles on the altar of expediency, Mr. Hamilton. The very soul of our revolution was the belief in self-governance. This cannot, must not be eroded by fear-mongering about foreign powers or internal strife.
Yet, Mr. Jefferson, the elasticity of our Constitution allows for adaptation and evolution. Our system of checks and balances, intertwined with the sovereignty of states and the overarching federal authority, provides a mechanism for correction and growth.
Well, gentlemen, we've circled this matter like hawks upon a field. The issue at hand is not whether federal power or states' rights prevail, but how we, as a people, navigate the tensions between them to forge a more perfect union.
An enlightening discourse, indeed. The delicate balance between federal authority and state sovereignty remains a cornerstone of our democratic experiment. As is evident, the discussion is far from resolved, but through dialogue and dedication, our nascent republic will find its way. Now, let us proceed to the next matter of our agenda. Gentlemen, let us now navigate the treacherous waters of amending our Constitution. Its rigidity and flexibility must serve our republic for ages yet unknown.
The structure we've devised, indeed, is meant to protect against precipitous changes, yet it allows for adaptation should the collective wisdom of our nation dictate. The amendment process is neither too lax nor excessively rigid. It strikes a delicate balance.
Ah, Madison, your vision is commendable, but consider the possibility of a future fraught with challenges we cannot now conceive. Might this process, in its quest for widespread consensus, stifle necessary expeditions in governance?
Hamilton, your affection for a powerful central authority blinds you to the beauty of liberty's tree, which must be allowed to grow and reshape itself with each generation. Why must we shackle future Americans to our present conceptions?
There lies danger in too freely altering the structure of government, Jefferson. A constitution too easily amended risks descending into lawlessness and caprice. Stability and respect for law must underpin our republic.
The task of future statesmen will indeed be difficult, to discern when to hold to the bedrock of our founding principles and when to adapt to the exigencies of their times. I trust posterity will wield this tool with caution and wisdom.
And yet, how do we ensure that this tool, does not become a weapon against the very liberties we strive to protect. If the process is misapplied or overused, might we not find ourselves in a constant state of flux, undermining the government's ability to function?
An astute concern, Hamilton. Hence the requirement for broad consensus across states before any change is ratified. It serves as a bulwark against the tyranny of the majority and the caprices of the moment.
But let us not forget, gentlemen, that the earth belongs to the living. No constitution should be so sacred as to bind the hands of future generations. Our duty is to provide a framework, not a prison.
And within that framework lies the balance between change and continuity. Too great a tendency towards innovation could as well endanger liberty as too unyielding an adherence to tradition.
It seems, then, we are agreed that the amendment process is a double-edged sword, to be wielded with great care. Our experiment in self-governance requires not only the wisdom of its founders, but the continued vigilance and participation of all its citizens. Gentlemen, let us discuss the role of the judiciary, including judicial review and interpretation of the Constitution. Mr. Hamilton, you've been rather vociferous on this matter. Pray, share your wisdom.
Indeed, Mr. Franklin, our Constitution establishes a government of laws and not of men. A strong judiciary, vested with the authority to review acts of Congress and the executive, ensures that the bounds of the Constitution are never transgressed. Without this check, what guard have we against tyranny?
While I concur with Mr. Hamilton on the necessity of a judiciary independent, I urge caution. Judicial overreach threatens the balance we've meticulously designed. The judiciary must interpret, not make the laws.
Ah, Mr. Madison, but who is to decide the extent of this interpretation if not the judiciary itself? It is the very essence of judicial review to delineate the boundary between the constitutional and the unconstitutional.
Beware, gentlemen, lest we forget the dangers of consolidating too much power in any one branch. A judiciary unchecked becomes an oligarchy, usurping the very liberties it is meant to protect. The Constitution provides no express authority for judicial review, and we tread dangerous ground assuming such power.
Mr. Jefferson speaks not without merit. Yet let us not disregard the indispensable role of a strong judiciary in maintaining the Constitution's integrity. Without it, our laws become subject to the whims of populism and the fickleness of majorities.
Our republic's endurance depends greatly upon the character of those appointed to its judiciary. Men of high moral standing, not merely legal expertise, should be the primary qualification for such positions. For a judiciary swayed by faction or personal ambition portends grave threats to our union.
Indeed, General Washington. And yet, should we fail to empower the judiciary to act as an effective check, we risk the encroachment of tyranny by the other branches. The delicate balance of our system hinges upon a judiciary both empowered and restrained.
The quandary remains, how we empower yet restrain. The Federalist envisages a judiciary of limited jurisdiction, one bound by the text of the Constitution and the intent of its framers. Let us heed this wisdom lest we imperil the Republic.
The tree of liberty must not be choked by the tendrils of an overbearing judiciary. Let the people be the ultimate arbiters through their elected representatives. To place undue trust in the hands of a few appointed judges is a perilous venture.
Yet, without the judiciary as the bulwark of our liberties, to whom do we turn when laws contravene the spirit of our Constitution? We must not, in our vigilance against tyranny, render ourselves defenseless against the subtler dangers of legislative and executive overreach.
A spirited debate, gentlemen. It is clear that the judicious balance of our judiciary remains a matter of keen intellect and passionate concern. May our posterity judge wisely in the appointments and tolerances of this essential branch. Let us now proceed to our next matter of discussion. Gentlemen, the matter before us is the design of our republic's system of representation and the role of the Electoral College. Mr. Madison, enlighten us with your rationale for this particular architecture.
The structure we adopted, splitting the legislature into two houses, was a necessary innovation to balance the diverse interests of our nation. The Virginia Plan, which I initially proposed, sought to grant representation based upon population. a fair method to ensure the voice of the populous states was not drowned out by the less populous. However, the resultant Great Compromise was essential to unite our states, giving equal representation in the Senate and proportional in the House.
Indeed, but let us not stray from the critical function of the Electoral College. This institution serves as a bulwark against the tyranny of the majority by tempering direct democracy. In this republic, it is not merely numbers that should dictate, but an informed electorate capable of discerning the qualities necessary for high office.
Mr. Hamilton, it seems you distrust the very people upon whom our experiment rests. The Electoral College, in my view, threatens to place an unnecessary barrier between the government and its citizens, potentially leading to a president unrepresentative of the people's will. Such a structure could easily be manipulated by factions more interested in power than in the general welfare.
Yet we must also consider the Senate's role in this discussion. It acts as a counterbalance to the fleeting passions that may seize the House of Representatives. The Senate, appointed by state legislatures, at least in our initial design, ensures that the states themselves have a direct hand in the federal governance, therein preserving the federal nature of our union.
As much as unity amongst our state is desirable, the question that looms large over this design is whether it accomplishes our goal of a fair and equitable government. The Great Compromise and the Electoral College were indeed essential in our time to forge a United States, but the permanence of their effectiveness in promoting unity and fair representation is yet to be tested.
General Washington, your caution is noted, but let us remember that the mechanisms we have established allow for evolution. The Constitution and its institutions are not so rigid as to become obsolete. Our design allows for adaptability, with the steadfast goal of a balanced, coherent governance.
Adaptability notwithstanding, we must vigilantly guard against the concentration of power. The fragmentation of authority across various branches and methods of election is designed to prevent any one faction or interest from dominating the federal government. Whether through the Electoral College or the bifurcated legislature, the essence is to mitigate tyranny.
As with all designs, imperfections exist. Yet, in crafting this new form of government, we have sought to lay down a system that, while not immune to criticism, is capable of improvement and refinement. The Union's endurance will depend on the wisdom and virtue of our successors.
And so it shall, Mr. Adams. Yet it behooves us to remember that the ultimate authority rests with the people. Institutions like the Electoral College must not become a means for the elite to subvert the popular will, but should serve as a measured safeguard against precipitous decisions.
Gentlemen, your insights offer a robust foundation for understanding the complex interplay between representation and the myriad safeguards against tyranny we've woven into the fabric of our Constitution. Let us proceed, always mindful of the delicate balance needed to preserve liberty and promote the general welfare in this great experiment. Gentlemen, let us delve into the subject of individual rights and liberties, notably the Bill of Rights, and its initial omission from the Constitution. Mr. Madison, you have been both a critic and a champion of these amendments. Pray, elucidate your evolution on this matter.
It is true, Mr. Franklin, that my initial belief leaned towards the redundancy of a Bill of Rights, given our government's construction to limit itself. However, the potent insistence of several states for explicit protections against governmental encroachment convinced me of its necessity. The amendments serve not only as guardians of individual liberty, but as a constant reminder to the government of its bounds.
Yet, to consider that the cumbersome inclusion of these rights might imply the government had the power to infringe upon them in the first place. The Constitution, through its very design, was meant to ensure liberty without need for such explicit enumerations.
Mr. Hamilton, with all due respect, your faith in the structure of government blinds you. History shows us that governments, if left unchecked, will inevitably encroach upon the rights of the governed. The Bill of Rights is our bulwark against such tyranny, explicitly forbidding the government from overreaching. To rely solely on the structure of government for protection is a folly.
While Mr. Jefferson's distrust may seem to border on paranoia, he strikes at a core truth. Liberties not expressly safeguarded may easily become liberties infringed. The Bill of Rights is thus essential not merely as a legal instrument, but as a moral beacon.
The assurance of individual rights is paramount to cultivate the trust of the populace in this new government. We have fought tyranny, and it is imperative that we do not become that which we opposed so vehemently. The Bill of Rights is a testament to our commitment to liberty.
General Washington, I concur that trust is essential, but must we dilute the authority of our national government to such an extent? Strength, after all, is necessary for the preservation of order and liberty alike.
Mr. Hamilton, the beauty of the Constitution, augmented by the Bill of Rights, lies precisely in its balance. These amendments do not weaken our government, but fortify it, ensuring its endurance by securing the very freedoms our republic promises to protect.
A fiery discourse indeed. Each perspective underscores the complexity of safeguarding liberty within a strong yet restrained governance framework. The Bill of Rights, gentlemen, appears as a crucial instrument in this delicate balance, ensuring that individual freedoms remain inviolate amidst the evolving landscape of our nation's governance. Let us, then, cherish and uphold these rights, for upon them rests the foundation of our republic's liberties. Gentlemen, we now steer our conversation to a matter most disconcerting yet critical, the issue of slavery. Its constitutional implications and the future challenges it portends demand our earnest discourse.
The very notion that a nation conceived in liberty tolerates such bondage is a paradox that torments my soul. Yet we find ourselves entangled in this moral quagmire, having allowed economic expedience to blind us to the egregious violation of natural rights.
With all due respect, Mr. Jefferson, your eloquence on the subject of rights contrasts starkly with the reality of your own Monticello. We cannot ignore the hypocrisy of advocating liberty whilst owning slaves. The Constitution as it stands is complicit in this immorality by failing to condemn slavery outright.
Pragmatism, not hypocrisy, guided our hand at the convention. We faced the Herculean task of unifying disparate states into a single republic. The compromises made, including those concerning slavery, were bitter pills swallowed in pursuit of a greater good. Yet I concede they are but temporary solutions to a problem that will undoubtedly fester.
I, too, wrestle with this contradiction. My own journey towards emancipation reflects a broader, evolving understanding of liberty's true meaning. It is a path I wish our young nation would one day follow, recognizing that true unity and strength can only spring from justice for all.
This discourse, while necessary, skirts the issue's immediacy. Yes, we are men of our time, yet we must also be men ahead of our times. The discord sowed by slavery not only divides states and peoples, but stands as a festering wound on the very concept of American liberty.
The solution lies not in immediate abolition, but in the gradual enlightenment of our citizenry. Educate them on the moral debasement that slavery engenders, and in time, they will choose to abandon it.
Education, Mr. Jefferson? While I champion an enlightened populace, we cannot wait for generational shifts in moral sentiment. Legislation must lead, not follow. We ought to champion laws that progressively undermine the institution of slavery.
And yet, any legislative action that too hastily aims to dismantle slavery risks tearing our fragile union asunder. It is a path fraught with peril and requires the utmost care and deliberation.
True, Mr. Madison. However, the courage to confront difficult truths and make hard choices is the hallmark of leadership. The stain of slavery upon our nation must be addressed, lest it undermine the very foundations of our republic.
A heated, yet necessary debate, gentlemen. It is clear that while there is no easy resolution to the issue of slavery, it is incumbent upon this nation to confront it with both moral fortitude and pragmatic wisdom. Let us hope future generations rise to this challenge with the same fervor for liberty that guided our own endeavors. Gentlemen, we find ourselves engaged in a discussion of great import, the balance between a standing army and state militias. General Washington, pray, share your insights first.
Experience hath shown that a professional army is indispensable for national defense. My concern lies with relying solely on militias, which, while embodying the spirit of liberty, oft lack the discipline and readiness of a standing force. A balance must be struck to ensure both our security and freedom.
I find myself in agreement with General Washington. A strong central military is essential to protect against external threats and maintain order. The assumption that militias alone could safeguard our nation is, with respect, a romantic notion unanchored in the harsh realities of international relations.
Yet, we must not lose sight of the fact that a large standing army poses a grave threat to liberty. History is replete with instances of such forces being used to oppress the very people they were meant to protect. Our focus ought to be on a citizenry capable of bearing arms to defend their rights, not on creating an apparatus that could be turned against them.
The Constitution provides for both a standing army and state militias, indicating a foresight into this very debate. The key lies in legislative control and oversight of the army, ensuring that it cannot become an instrument of tyranny.
The balance you seek is a delicate one indeed. A standing army, under the proper controls, is necessary for defense and maintaining order. However, this power is not to be entrusted lightly. The people must have mechanisms in place to ensure that their army cannot be used against them by those with despotic ambitions.
And yet, without a central authority to maintain and deploy a standing army, we expose ourselves to the predations of foreign powers and internal strife. We must not be naive in believing that goodwill alone will protect our shores.
Alexander, your trust in central authority belies a skepticism of the people's capacity to govern themselves. If we are to entrust our liberty to an army controlled by the few, then we have learned nothing from our struggle for independence.
The discussion here unfolds the very essence of our Republican experiment: how to arm ourselves against external aggression without compromising the liberties we hold dear. In this, we must tread with caution, guided by our principles and the lessons history affords us.
We see, then, a spectrum of thought that, while divergent, converges on a singular point: the preservation of liberty. The challenge lies in navigating the tension between necessary defense and the potential for overreach. Let us continue this inquiry with the understanding that our ultimate allegiance is to the principles of freedom and self-governance that founded this nation. Gentlemen, let's turn our attention to the economic powers vested in Congress, including taxation, regulation of commerce, and the ever-important matter of fiscal responsibility.
The foundation of a robust nation lies in its fiscal framework. Congress must wield broad economic powers, not only to levy taxes, but to regulate trade among states and with foreign nations. Without this authority, our republic risks falling into economic stagnation and vulnerability.
Pray, Hamilton, your trust in a centralized authority to manage our economic affairs is most unsettling. The agrarian life fosters independence and virtue. Excessive regulation and control by a central government only serve to suffocate liberty and innovation among the citizenry.
Both perspectives hold merit, yet the true path lies in balancing these interests. The Constitution grants Congress the power to regulate commerce, aiming to prevent interstate discord and create a unified market. Yet this power must not infringe upon the liberties and the livelihoods of our people.
Fiscal responsibility and frugality are virtues that this government must uphold. The accumulation of national debt is a threat to our independence and security. Congress must wield its powers wisely, avoiding the siren call of profligacy for the sake of our progeny.
Yet, my dear Adams, to ignore the importance of investing in the future of our nation through infrastructural and institutional development would be equally short-sighted. A balance must be struck, indeed, but not at the expense of progress.
Intrusive fiscal policies and the specter of a national bank only serve to ensnare the common man in a web of dependence. True freedom lies in the limitation of government's reach into the pockets and practices of its citizens.
Let us not forget that without a strong economic policy and the ability to protect our burgeoning nation against economic manipulation by foreign powers, we risk everything we have fought for. Prudence dictates that we empower Congress to act, but always with a cautious regard for liberty and the welfare of the citizen.
Indeed, Washington. The specter of foreign influence looms large, and without the capability to regulate our commerce and protect our industries, we become playthings at the hands of more economically aggressive nations.
Let it be known, the power to tax and to regulate commerce are indispensable tools in the arsenal of a sovereign state. They must be wielded with foresight and discretion, but wielded they must be if we are to secure the future prosperity of our Union.
It is clear that as much as our views diverge on the method, our objectives align in the prosperity and well-being of our Republic. Let us continue to challenge each other, that through these trials, the best policies for our nation may emerge. Gentlemen, let us now deliberate on the impeachment process, a safeguard against tyranny and the abuse of power. Mr. Madison, pray, share your insights into its necessity and importance.
The provision for impeachment, gentlemen, is the Constitution's strongest defense against despotism. It was designed as a vital check on both the executive and judiciary to be used when officers betray the public trust. Let us not forget, it is the tool through which we ensure that not even the highest offices in our land are beyond accountability.
Whilst I concur with Mr. Madison on the principle of impeachment, I must stress the importance of exercising this power with utmost caution. It is a mechanism that, if misused for partisan aims, could severely undermine the very fabric of our government. We must establish clear and unambiguous criteria for what constitutes high crimes and misdemeanors.
Caution, yes, but let us not be so tepid as to neuter this necessary check out of fear. The power of impeachment is a fundamental right of the people, through their representatives, to hold their leaders accountable. An overemphasis on caution could render us incapable of action against genuine malfeasance.
Indeed, we must tread a fine line. History shows us that factions have and will attempt to use such measures to serve their own ends rather than the public good. Yet the absence of this power would leave us vulnerable to the caprices and potentially tyrannical tendencies of those in high offices.
The discussion elucidates the gravitas of the impeachment process. This power, while crucial, must be wielded judiciously. The stability of our republic and the preservation of public trust hinge upon our ability and willingness to apply this measure only in the most egregious instances of malfeasance.
Your passionate arguments reveal the complexity of this safeguard. It emerges not merely as a mechanism to punish, but as a testament to the principles of justice, accountability, and the rule of law that underpin our republic. Each contribution has shone a light on the delicate balance between prevention of abuse and the potential for political weaponization. Let us proceed, bearing in mind the profound responsibility that accompanies such discourse. Gentlemen, as we draw this discussion to a close, let us reflect upon the grand experiment that is the Constitution. The future of our republic rests upon the shoulders of generations yet unborn. Pray, share your final thoughts on the duty that lies upon every American to preserve, protect, and defend our founding principles.
It is the paramount duty of every citizen of this great republic to uphold the virtue and valor that founded it. Let no man shirk his responsibility, for indifference and neglect can erode the very foundations of liberty. The Constitution is a beacon of freedom, yet it requires the constant vigilance and courage of its people to defend its principles against the erosion of time and tide of tyranny.
Indeed, the tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. It is a natural manure. Our Constitution is not a document of permanence, but a living testament to the evolving human condition. It is incumbent upon each generation to adapt, to amend, and to rejuvenate our founding principles in accordance with the age's demands.
While I concur with the need for vigilance, let us not be seduced by the siren call of continual revolution. The strength of the Constitution lies in its structure of governance, a system that balances power and ambition. To preserve it, we must educate our citizenry in the art of government, ensuring that knowledge and reason guide the republic, not passion and ignorance.
The preservation of the Constitution demands more than mere sentiment. It requires an active and informed participation in the civic life of our nation. Every citizen ought to understand the mechanisms of power and the importance of checks and balances designed to prevent tyranny. let us not forget that the loss of liberty is always just one generation away.
Our Constitution, though crafted with great wisdom and foresight, is but paper and ink without the spirit of the American people to animate it. It is the duty of every citizen to engage in the public square, to debate with fervor but without malice, to hold their leaders accountable, and above all to cherish and protect the freedom and liberty that is their birthright.
Your insights, as ever, are acute and penetrating. This grand experiment, the United States of America, is indeed an unparalleled adventure in governance. Yet its success is not preordained. It rests upon the principles of liberty, justice, and the active participation of its people. May future generations tend this garden of liberty with care, wisdom, and an unyielding commitment to the ideals upon which it was founded. The task is arduous, the responsibility great, but the reward is a republic that reflects the highest aspirations of mankind. Let us depart now, with the hope that our words this day have added but a small measure to the safeguarding of our Constitution for centuries to come.